on our next Human Capital Matters segment. It's scheduled for July 26, and we will have Ms. Ibis Reynolds. Ms. Ibis Reynolds is the Chief Human Resource Officer of Distribution International, corporate offices in Houston. She'll be our guest speaker on July the 26th with Human Capital Matters. Today's special segment will be discussing being an essential construction supply company during the global pandemic. Our special guest today is Mr. Brian Tuttle. Brian, thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Brian Tuttle is the CFO of American Materials Company, AMC, which is a North Carolina-based supplier of high-quality construction materials and delivery services. Brian joined AMC in 2018 after 20 years with pharmaceutical product development, known as PPD, where he served in various finance roles of increasing responsibility. He was interim CFO in 2014. Brian began his career in public accounting with Coopers & Lybrand in 1990, where he served in various roles in the tax department. Brian is a North Carolina native. He graduated from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill with his business administration degree in accounting and his master's in science and accounting. Brian also has completed his MBA from UNC in 2003. Again, what a pleasure to have you with us, Brian. Welcome. We'll jump into the segment and get started with our first question.
Great.
So Brian, tell us a bit about American Materials and what you guys particularly do. Maybe it's not a household name yet, but after today's segment, I'm sure it will be.
Well, we hope it is. So, AMC is a leading supplier of aggregate being stone and sand products in Eastern, North, and South Carolina. We have a lot of products, but primarily we work with concrete, mortar, and asphalt sand, and that's supplied to concrete and paving companies throughout North and South Carolina. We also work closely with the North Carolina and South Carolina Department of Transportation and provide them products for what they use on the public roads and bridges and surrounding areas. We also, obviously, given the nature of what we do, supply a lot of landscaping companies with sand and stone products. Unlike some of our competitors, we actually have a fleet of trucks. We have approximately 75 trucks that we use to help deliver these products, which we feel gives us an advantage in terms of servicing our clients, because in a lot of cases, our competitors don't have their own trucks. So if you buy from them, you arrange somebody to haul it for you. Where with AMC, it's sort of a one-stop shop. We can provide the product. We can also deliver it for you. And so we feel like that enhances our service offering. And we also, in addition to the sand and stone, we have a ready-mix concrete plant down in Sumter, South Carolina that we use to service concrete to local customers there.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. So why do you believe that American Materials was deemed an essential business throughout this pandemic, Brian?
Right, and we're very grateful for that designation, Bo. But I think that if you look at what the North and South Carolina governors did, they really looked at industries that they thought were vital to keep the economy moving at some pace, maybe not the pace that was operating before, and they deemed construction as an essential business just to keep the residential and commercial projects that were going on continuing. And as a supplier of construction products, we like some of our competitors and complementary products were deemed essential. So again, we are very grateful that we got that designation, and we've been operating without stop ever since the pandemic began.
So as we think about construction companies, most of these jobs you cannot work from home, you cannot work remotely. Tell us a bit about the various roles across your company and how some of the folks show up to work each day, if you will.
Right, sure. Again, we're a mining manufacturing company, so most of our folks are out in the field at the mines. We have a very small corporate presence here in Wilmington. But at the sites, obviously, we have folks who are in the office and the scale house. Everything is sold by weight, so there are scales and folks to measure that and ticket that and get the customers on their way once they're loaded. And then obviously, the biggest piece of our operations staff is just the the guys and girls that work in the mines themselves. And so there's folks who are working in the excavators they're digging up the sand, or loaders, folks who are working in the loaders, loading it into the trucks as they come through. And obviously, as I mentioned, with the fleet of trucks, we have, about 75 to 80 truck drivers that are on staff that are driving these trucks every day, delivering product.
So we're expecting perhaps the coronavirus has changed the way you guys operate. Tell us about some of those changes and what does that look like on a daily basis?
Yeah, it has changed some things and how we operate, but just to step back for a second, I mean, as a mining company, safety is our top priority. And whether it's here at the corporate office or at the mine, every meeting begins with a segment or section on safety. Our employees undergo constant training and reinforcement on safety protocol, and every employee's bonus package has a component that's tied to safety and safety metrics. So it's very important to AMC and Summit Materials, which is a publicly traded company that actually owns AMC. And so we have that culture of safety. And so we were quick, given what was going on, we were quick to enact a plan to keep our employees safe and our customers safe as they come on the site. And you think about how we did that in the corporate office, like most other folks, we were asked to work from home. And so most of our staff worked from home, and we really avoided coming into the office if all possible. If we had to come in, we had masks, hand sanitizer, and other cleaning products around. Everybody kept their distance. But in the plants, in the mines, the employees, again, they were provided hand sanitizer and mask. Again, in a manufacturing mining environment, our employees are already sort of covered in personal protection equipment. They're in steel-toed boots, they're in safety vests, they're in hard hats already, and a lot of times goggles as well. But they were provided masks, and the equipment was sanitized before and after every use, and we really limited folks coming in and out of the offices. So we tried to keep them as segregated as possible. In the meetings that we have every week, if sometimes every day at the plant, those were held outside. We didn't want them inside grouped up together, so the meetings were held outside where they could be 6 feet apart. So we tried to continue to operate as normal as possible, but integrate the protocols that we were hearing that were necessary to keep us all safe.
Brian, that's impressive, and thank you for sharing that with us and the audience. As we have been talking with business leaders across the country, some had business continuity plans, some had disaster recovery plans. How did American Materials communicate your business continuity plan to its employees and to the customers, Brian?
Yeah, great question, because at first we used email, obviously emailing a blast out to everybody, but given the nature of what we do, a lot of the guys are in equipment all day, they're not in front of email. So, as soon as we enacted the plan, there was face-to-face communication at each plant, at each site. So they could ask any questions immediately. And so again, it was received very well. And with the customers, obviously phone calls to some of our biggest customers, and again, emails and letters that went out as well, because given that our customers were essential businesses, we were sure they would keep operating and keep needing our support, and we wanted them to know that we were going to be there, and we wanted them to not only know that we were going to be open, but we were going to be operating under these enhanced safety protocols, and we wanted them to understand that so their employees would understand it. So when they come on our site, they could sort of follow the rules, as you say, and keep everybody safe.
Sounds like you beefed up the communications, and that's one of the special ingredients to success in times like these, Brian.
Yeah, we certainly.
Go ahead.
I said we certainly did beef up the communication. I think in something like this, you can't ever communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So tell us then how receptive or non-receptive were your employees to the changes and how you operate?
Yeah. Again, given the culture of safety that we have here, the employees were very interested in what they could do, what we could do to make sure they could continue to come to work. I mean, if you think about our workforce and the nature of it, i.e. Most of those folks being so-called blue collar, they want to come to work, they want to work, and they want to get paid. And so they were very excited about being able to continue to work. They were very grateful that we were deemed essential and that we could continue to let them come to work. And so we had no pushback at all on the protocols that we put in place. Our customers, I think, were just as receptive. Again, they didn't want their employees coming into our sites and catching something or bringing something back and spreading it. So they were invested in what they could do to adhere to the rules that we laid out, and fell right in line. So it's been, you know, this seems funny to say a positive experience with the pandemic, but if you have to go through this in terms of the employee reaction, the customer reaction, it's been a very positive experience. We've seemed to work together very well to try to tackle this.
So I'm hearing you say there weren't really any significant disruptions, deliveries to the customers.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, that's great news to hear. So Brian, as North Carolina and South Carolina have certainly relaxed some of our original restrictions related to the coronavirus, how have your business continuity plans evolved or adapted?
You know, right now we're trying to keep everything relatively the same as when we rolled it out. You're right, the states have started to relax things a little bit. We have allowed our corporate employees to come back into the office, although we still stress the 6 feet apart, the wash your hands. Folks are in the office, but we are keeping, again, separate. You know, at the plants, we're keeping everything in place for the time being. And the employees, again, it's a routine they've gotten used to. It seems to be working really well. You know, we'll continue to assess things as we move forward. But right now, it's sort of it feels like business as usual.
Well, that's not the case with a lot of businesses that are out there, of executives that we're talking to. So good for you for that.
Well, we are lucky in that most of our activity occurs outside, right? And so that helps us in that regard.
Absolutely. Are there any processes or procedures, Brian, that you've adopted to deal with COVID-19 that you'll keep around and as things return to normal?
Yeah, I think we will, Bo. I mean, I think that we constantly assess the processes and procedures just to be as efficient and safe as we can. And I think that one of the things we saw with this is the fact that we wanted to limit the contact between our office folks at the sites and the customer folks who are coming down out of the trucks to get their ticket to then leave. And so we've worked on, you know, sort of electronic ticketing, so to speak. And I think that's something that we will continue when this is over. We'll probably, you know, invest some time and money in a more robust technology solution than we have right now. But that's something I see continuing, is to limit that contact. One, it's just, it keeps our employees safe because it keeps people out of the office. It's keeping the driver safe because you're not getting down out of a truck, walking across the scale to get something and then trying to climb back in. So you want to limit those type of activities and those risks. So I think that we will continue or keep some of these things that we've implemented.
Mm-hmm. Great to hear. Well, let's look to the audience for some questions coming through the chat portal, Brian.
Okay, great.
Here we go. Go ahead. Can you see that question, Brian?
Yeah, so it says, have you had any positive COVID-19 cases at your company? And so I'm happy to report that we actually haven't had any positive cases. And I think that's a testament to the plan we put in place and the speed in which we put it in. And then also to the fact that our employees bought into the plan, they adopted it, and they've played by the rules, so to speak, throughout. We have had, I think, 4 cases where we've had folks tested because they weren't feeling well, but those tests came out negative. But again, they didn't feel well. They let us know ASAP. And so if they weren't already at work, they stayed at home. If they were at work, they left immediately, avoiding contact with anybody, and got off the site. So again, we feel fortunate we've not had any.
Yeah, the question of, as your drivers and your delivery people go into customer areas, has American Materials received some protocol back from customer visits and customer sites that's changed the way you guys deliver or operate on their premises?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what we did. Our customers have tried to limit the contact between the driver and the receiver. And so again, we've instituted sort of electronic ticketing and signatures versus having someone manually sign the ticket and hand it back to our driver. when you go up to a site, the driver has to get out. You have to look around to where you're backing into. You have to make sure it's a safe environment before you unload the product. So you have to get out of the truck. But yeah, they're trying to limit contact and limit the time that our folks are there. And so again, as our customers have done, we have fallen into the requested protocol at those sites with no pushback.
The latest articles that I'm reading, probably the ones you're reading, is social distancing and wearing masks may be around for quite a while. Definitely around until we can get the population vaccinated.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions coming in?
I think I saw one pop up about disappeared on me.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. There's one about looking back. Is there anything that we would have done differently? I think that some of the things that we did with our drivers in terms of limiting their interaction on customer sites and the sanitation of the trucks, I think we probably should have been doing that before. Even without COVID, we are busy year round, obviously a little bit slower in the winter, but we are impacted by the normal cold, flu, and those type things. And so I think we've already talked about, if we had had the sanitation protocol in place before, would we have avoided some of those days where we were short drivers because they were sick? And so I think looking back, we probably would have implemented that a little sooner. And I think that we would have been faster to implement the electronic ticketing. Again, it's something that reduces safety risk at the sites, and it makes the whole process in terms of getting that loaded truck out of your site so another truck can get in there much faster.
Mm-hmm. Great point. I do see another question. Can you see that one, Brian?
Oh yeah, so it's asking us if we've had employees who were hesitant to come to work due to the potential exposure. No, I'm not aware of any employees who have voiced kind of hesitation. Again, we have a very motivated workforce, and again, when someone's not felt well, they've called in and stayed home. But no one has said, I don't want to come in because I'm worried about catching it or I'm worried about somebody else having it. Everyone that could be at work every day has been at work every day.
It's great news. Yeah, but it says, it's a testament of your culture and a testament to the leadership team when tough things happen to the company and the environment. It's great that you've been fostering a positive culture for quite a while.
Yeah, and I think again the safety culture is talked about every day. And so I think in terms just when this happens, we talked about it earlier, just communicating with your team. The management team here was very aligned on what we needed to do to try to keep the workers safe, and the fact that we needed to communicate constantly with them because they were worried about it. They were reading, hearing things on the news. They were concerned about our ability to stay open. And so again, it was just constant communication, whether it's email, phone calls, in person, letting those guys and the ladies know what's going on and keeping them informed. And I think that they saw that we were engaged with the process and that we were looking out for them. And so I think that made them more confident about coming to work and focusing on the things that they need to focus on, staying safe at the work site and not worried about so much COVID when you're on the site.
Brian, we've heard a lot about healthcare workers and essential workers coming to work and not having adequate PPE. Did you guys run into any issues procuring masks and sanitation supplies, or was it not a problem?
It was a little bit of a challenge at first. Again, we had all the basic PPE we usually have. We didn't have an abundance of sanitizer on each site, and we didn't have enough masks. And so we were lucky. One of our sister companies was able to procure quite a bit of mask and sanitizer and shared that with us, which we distributed out to the site. So that's probably another lesson learned in this, just in terms of, everyone says this could happen again, right? It could come back in the fall or in the winter. We'll be prepared from a supply standpoint if that happens.
Yeah, I think from what I'm reading, Brian, and from other executives, that was what we weren't prepared for. So the supply chain of PPE was not there. So I'm sure a lot of companies are inventorying up, if you will,
Yeah,
to be ready if another wave hits us.
yeah, definitely. We certainly
We,
are.
we've really enjoyed having you with us, Brian. It's been great to converse with you and to get to know more about American Materials Company. So after today, it is a household name, I'm sure.
Well, if it is, I'll give you all the credit, Bo. Thanks for having me on. It was fun. Happy to address any more questions if they're out there.
All right. Well, sometimes we'll get some through the email, Brian. But again, thank you again for your time. I know your time is valuable, and we do so appreciate that.
All right. Thanks for having me again, Bo. Enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you, Brian.